So I am jumping on the bandwagon here of the 5 things that my dad, as an ex-Secret Service agent, does not wear, like, use, and then tells other people not to use them also. I'm not saying that we followed his advice all the time, but I'm just gonna give them anyway. Okay, number 1, his arch nemesis, hoodies. My man is not a fan of hoodies. He's always told me they make you super vulnerable and you do not even know it. I did not believe him until one morning my brother was getting real disrespectful and I watched my dad weaponize his hoodie against him. Number 2, flip-flops. My dad does not own a single pair of flip-flops. Yes, he wears sneakers to the beach. He's that guy, okay? Reasons why he does not like them is because they end up breaking a lot. They are not good for driving. You can get them stuck underneath the gas or the brake for long distance walking, or if you're in an unfamiliar area and you are walking in flip-flops and there is a situation where you either need to get away or run for cover, it's not going to be the best footwear for any of those situations. Number 3, fingerprint unlocking technology or anything that uses some type of touch. My dad is not a fan. He's old schooling it. Reason B, because a lot of times if you are in a panicked situation, I don't know if you guys have experienced this before, but I definitely have, and you are trying to unlock your phone and your cortisol is through the roof, your blood pressure is up and your fingers are sweating and you are trying to either unlock your phone or unlock a safe, it does not read. So my dad is not a fan of any of those systems. Number 4, this one usually pertains to women, and that is long hair or wearing a ponytail out in public with long hair. So if you actually look at people who are predators, they say that one of the things that they look for, especially when they are like on the peruse for women, is hairstyle. Anything that is in a ponytail or that is long is seen as easy to grab and manipulate. And my dad has always told me, even when I was a kid, that wherever the head goes, the body goes. And after breaking up a ton of high school fights when I was a teacher, I can tell you that long hair and a ponytail definitely has a risk factor. Obviously, I don't listen, but I needed to share. And number 5 is headphones. You guys already knew this. My dad is not a fan of headphones. He sees it as, especially if you are in public, but he sees it as something that is blocking a sense that your body has to keep you safe. That's why we have our senses. It's so that we can observe the world and so that we can have security in our surroundings. So headphones for him is when you are blocking noise. And a lot of times noise is something that you hear before something happens. So he's not a fan of headphones either. All right, thought I'd share.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me for Get Into It with Taz and Chris. I just want to add something to that opening video. I am not a fan of headphones in public. If you ever see me, at most, I'll have one AirPod in, but the noise canceling, I will have off. And that's just because I only have one really, really good ear, so I still need to be able to hear and hear my surroundings 9 times out of 10. If I'm outside of my home and I'm not in a place that I feel secure, I don't really answer my phone either, so that I'm not concentrating on the phone call and missing everything else around. So that is a little bit.
Yeah, I don't use that. I know back when the iPhones had the home button and all that, and people were doing the finger touch and all that to turn on. I never did that either. I felt like as long as you're doing a passcode and every so often maybe changing that up, that was fine, because ultimately somebody could still open it with your finger if you were knocked out, compared to somebody doesn't know your code.
And the one thing I will say that I did not like way back when we first started getting cell phones, when they would have like the crazy patterns you could put in and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if you're in a panic and you need to call for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're in a panic, so your mind's in a different set.
And here's a bit of security information for people that are outside the situation. If you know that a friend or family member is at a place where you hear that there's an active shooter, please do not start bombarding them with calls and text,
Mm-hmm.
because all you're doing is putting a tracking beaker on them.
Mm-hmm. No, believe me, we could literally have a whole show on what people do in society that are probably not good moves. Just for a safety standpoint, there's a lot that's that can be taught and can be told and shined a light on. And unfortunately, a lot of technology and all that makes things convenient. It doesn't necessarily make things safer.
Yeah, just like for all the people who get upset when I tell them do not take pictures on the exterior of my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're like, it's not a big deal. We're connected.
Mm-hmm.
They can find and
yeah.
if they want you, your child, your whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Google World will tell them precisely where, stop taking exterior photos and stop posting videos and pictures while you're still at a location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the live stuff. Yeah, people that really want to find you can find you real quick, especially if they're in the same town.
Now, before we get into some more serious stuff, I guess this would be serious, but I find this, how did she do this? And I know y'all got questions, but there's 2 videos. Take a look at these 2 videos and we're going to come back and you're going to have the same questions that I have. I promise you. Here we go.
She drove her car through here, hit that flower pot, and she made it all the way to here, dude. There's no way, dude. South Shore Plaza, baby. I cannot believe it.
Like, she literally had to drive from all the way down there to over here.
What? What? Yeah.
Now, when I was digging for information, all I could find is that the woman is described as elderly. Literally, that's what they said. She's described as elderly. Okay. And evidently, there was a pedestrian walkway from the parking garage to the mall. But that even has me with even more questions like, how did she fit through that? How did that whole vehicle fit? Like,
right, something would have broke.
And as she's approaching the mall, why didn't the bells and whistles go off? Like, this is not another level of the parking garage.
Yeah.
And before y'all go, Taz, but she's elderly. No. You're talking about people who have withstood decades of change, technology, everything else. Stop treating the elderly like they're toddlers. These are people that are in control of the country right now. If you believe that they're so feeble-minded, why y'all keep voting them back into office?
Yeah, the elderly is in Washington.
That is the ultimate nursing home. But I'm just like, how? And the impeccable driving skills, because she didn't dent it. She didn't scratch the car. She didn't hit a person. She didn't hit a building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wouldn't be something that somebody frail and elderly would have done.
I mean, I don't like to walk from the parking lot or the parking garage to my favorite store in the mall either, but when I say I need curb to curb drop off service, I didn't mean like door to door, like in the mall.
Well, you're not getting out if your jam's on the radio.
True. Many of you all may have heard, some of you didn't. There's a link in the description of this video where it will walk you through to determine if you qualify for this latest announcement coming from CNBC.com. Biden cancels $10,000 in federal student loan debt for most borrowers. Here's the cliff notes. President Joe Biden announced he will forgive $10,000 in federal student debt for most borrowers, delivering financial relief to millions of Americans. Biden will cancel up to $20,000 for recipients of Pell Grants. Nearly 45% of borrowers, or almost 20 million people, would have their debt fully canceled, according to the White House. Now watch the press conference. Just like a good old man, and just like standard Joe Biden, he had to give an anecdotal story about him and his father, which is great. And there were some people that are like, well, what about people who didn't have debt? Then they have no problem. Well, what about people who paid off their debt? Then evidently they didn't have a problem because they already had the money to shell out to pay the debt.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stimulate the economy, instead of these people sending money away
Mm-hmm.
to pay off a debt that should not exist,
Mm-hmm.
let them put that money back into the economy.
Right.
And regarding that, I'm sure all of you all have heard about trickle-down economics. Let me show you the one and only way that trickle-down economics actually works, and then we'll talk about it.
I own a department store. This is what happens if I raise my staff's wages.
Because I'm getting paid more, I have more money. So I decide to eat out tonight.
Because I'm getting more customers, I can afford to do some renovations in my restaurant.
Because I'm getting more work, I can hire more staff.
Because I have a job, I can now afford to buy that new couch I needed.
Which means I get more customers, my company does better, and the economy grows. Here's what happens if I don't raise my staff's pay.
With the cost of living rising, I have to cut back on expenses, like eating out.
Because I'm getting fewer customers, I have to put off upgrading my restaurant.
Because I'm getting less work, can't hire any new staff.
Without a job, I can't afford to buy new things.
Which means I'm getting fewer customers, and the economy shrinks. Everybody is linked. If everybody cuts back on spending, then the economy shrinks. But if everybody has more money in their pockets, they have more money to spend on food, clothing, getting a haircut, watching a movie, going to the gym. And the more they spend, the more the economy grows. That's great for everyone, and it starts with raising wages.
Yeah, when Reagan came up with the whole trickle-down economy thing, he thought by giving tax breaks and more money to the top 1%, they would trickle it down. No, the rich stay rich because they're stingy with their money. But when you increase wages and put more money in the pockets of the average person, the average consumer that's not getting free clothing, free jewelry, comped meals, things like that. That's why I think the United States is so butt backwards, because the more money somebody makes, the more someone is willing to give them freebies. I actually do the opposite with my business. The less that you make, but you're trying to be loyal to my business, the more often I'm going to give you freebies, because that's going to cause you to talk about my business more, which then brings me in more revenue. The rich person isn't going to tell somebody, oh yeah, I got this fixed by blah, blah, blah. No, that's going to be their little secret. They're going to just start bringing their friends' equipment into me to get that perk.
Right. Just like the fact that to the right, they feel people just need to go find a way to make more money. So that results in multiple jobs, whereas more income results in people that might be able to, in some cases, survive on one job and have more time to do things, which means get out and help the economy. The whole idea of not giving people, or this is going to cost too much, you're not really asking the big questions about how to fuel the economy. You're looking at just restricting what people could be doing to better themselves, their quality of life, and survive on one job, instead of feeling like the only way I can make ends meet is at least two jobs.
Mm-hmm. And for people who go, well, if they have two jobs and they have a family, they still have to eat. Let me tell y'all a little story. Way back when, first husband, we were extremely poor. He worked for a restaurant. We didn't buy groceries because he cut a deal with his boss that any ingredients that were going to be tossed out that night, he could bring home and I would cook them up. And basically we were meal prepping before meal prepping was a thing. We had to work so much just to pay the bare necessities. We couldn't go out. The only thing we were putting into the economy was transportation. That's it. And because we took jobs so close to home, maybe twice a month we filled up a gas tank. Most of the time we could walk, unless it was inclement weather, back and forth to work. So we were really putting nothing into the economy. Nothing.
Right. It's just like when when I was married, early in my marriage, back in the DC area, cost of living is a little bit high there. And I had 2 jobs. My ex-wife had 2 jobs. We had no time to do anything. We drove to work and home. We were wiped out. We were exhausted. We were desperate to find a better way of quality of life. And, it took a matter of moving to try and do that. Multiple jobs will burn you out, and it will keep you from actually living to your fullest. You're just working to make ends meet, which is understandable, but you're not having the quality of life that you could with higher pay. Like I said, who knows what would have happened, if you're down to one job and making ends meet. You got more time to enjoy each other, more time to be out. Even if you're single, even if you're by yourself, it gives you more time to do things, which usually results in helping the economy because you're willing to get out and do things, even if whether you're in a relationship or not.
You're willing to meet up with friends for brunch. You're willing to catch that game. You're willing to go to that local concert. You're willing to go to that open mic and sit and chill. When you're stressed and you're sitting there counting your pennies, you're not doing anything.
No, you're trying to put food on the table, and that doesn't mean going out. You're getting limited groceries.
And as much as I really do loathe having compassion or anything, honestly, for Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh.
Coming from CNN.com, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene targeted in swatting incident, police say. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene was the target of a swatting police call early Wednesday morning, police said. Police officers in Rome, Georgia responded shortly after 1 a.m. Eastern Time to a 911 call reference to a subject being shot multiple times, said Rome Police Assistant Chief Debbie Burnett. Upon arriving at the address, they discovered this was the home of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Burnett said. Greene assured the officers there was no issue and the call was determined to be a false call commonly known as swatting, Burnett said. Swatting is a prank call made to authorities with the express purpose of luring them to a location, usually a home, where they are led to believe a horrific crime has been committed or is in progress. This results in a forceful response from local police or SWAT teams who have no way to know the call is a hoax. The 911 dispatch for Rome, Floyd County then received a second call from the suspect who was using a computer-generated voice stating that she was upset about Mrs. Greene's political view on transgender youth rights, Burnett said. Greene, whose time in Congress often has been defined by her combative and incendiary comments, has faced criticism for her anti-transgender remarks in the past. Last week, she introduced a bill that would make it a felony to provide certain so-called gender-affirming medical care to transgender minors. Last night, I was swatted just after 1 a.m. I can't express enough gratitude to my local law enforcement here in Rome, Floyd County, said Greene in a tweet Wednesday. Police said the incident is under investigation and did not release any additional information. I don't care what your political stance is, swatting has gotten people killed and injured. There are better ways to deal with somebody as egregious as Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right. Yeah, that sounds too much like their tactics. People that are on the far right, because harassment and everything is no holds barred in some cases. I mean, they'll sit outside your house and look through your window, let alone call somebody and say, "Oh, I saw illegal activity. It looked like somebody had a knife." No, they're in the kitchen cooking. So yeah, that literally sounds like a Karen move or something.
And it's like, we know she's not the best of persons. We know that. But
no, she's no darling.
She does have children. She does have a family. And her children, as far as I know, are minors and should not be held accountable or put in harm's way because of their mother.
Yeah, even if they've already probably been initiated in the queue.
And as you said, this does sound like some tactics of the right. Let's get into some examples of what they've been doing lately.
How many people realize just how extreme the MAGA party has actually become? And when I say extreme, I mean how detached they are from what the vast majority of Americans actually want. For example, 63% of Americans support the Voting Rights Act. MAGA extremists oppose it. 67% of Americans support raising the minimum wage. MAGA extremists oppose it. 72% of Americans support abortion access. MAGA extremists oppose it. 73% of Americans support the Inflation Reduction Act. MAGA extremists oppose it. 74% of Americans support the George Floyd Act. MAGA extremists oppose it. 76% of Americans support the Equality Act. MAGA extremists oppose it. 85% of Americans support the Equal Rights Amendment. MAGA extremists oppose it. 88% of Americans support $35 insulin. MAGA extremists oppose it. 92% of Americans support gun safety laws. MAGA extremists oppose them. And worst of all, MAGA extremists oppose democracy altogether and want to overturn the 2020 election. Stay active and organize and vote in November. Our democracy depends on it.
And the perfect example is this comment here. We struggle making ends meet with my boyfriend working 2 jobs and worry if I'm going to have to get a second job as well. And the GOP are the same ones overwhelmingly have been giving handouts and have come from mommy and daddy's money and nepotism that will say, oh, you can make it. My grandpa made it with $50 in his pocket. Yeah, when college costs $300 and you could go buy a house kit from Sears and Roebuck.
Yeah, remember, there's still corporations out there that are funding and get support and fueled by the GOP. So, yeah. And what about all those in Washington on the right that benefited from PPP loans?
Including members of the Trump administration that were also members of the Trump family.
Which did include Marjorie. And this was all, forgiven money. So, yeah, but apparently students are the enemy. Yeah, shame on them for getting through a pandemic, and now you're stuck trying to situate yourself and still pay that off. So yeah, with rent going up across the country and everything else, yeah, let's just make it harder on them because, well, at the time we paid it off. Yeah, let's see if we can be any meaner to those that are trying to make ends meet at a young age, or any age, even young adults still paying off their student loans. So yeah, anything that would benefit the masses, they're opposed, because the masses probably didn't vote for them. So if you didn't vote for us, we don't care.
And what's funny is, like I said last night, Roe v. Wade was supposed to be the ultimate perpetual talking point for the GOP. It was never truly supposed to be overturned. Since it's been overturned, the GOP is struggling to fundraise money, but they also put somebody who's known for embezzling money in charge of their money, and now they're missing millions of dollars, but I digress. And now at record numbers, women, especially the suburban women, they love to go after
moms.
Yeah, they're registering to vote. There are people who have been lifelong Republicans that are now switching parties or proclaiming themselves independent. There are so many seats right now switching blue ahead of the midterms. I'm like, yeah, y'all screwed the pooch. But here's one, I guess you could say, glimmer of hope coming from The Guardian. Trump appears to concede he illegally retained official documents. Donald Trump's lawyers have indicated that he unlawfully retained official government documents after losing the presidential election and not handing the papers over to the National Archivist. In a motion submitted earlier this week, the former president's legal team argued that some of the documents seized by the FBI in a search of Trump's Florida resort could, thank you, somebody finally said it right, be subject to executive privilege. They are seeking the appointment of a so-called special master to determine what materials the justice officials can review. It's not clear that executive privilege would even be relevant to the particular crime he's being investigated for, and yet in this filing, he basically admits that he is in possession of them, which is what the government is trying to establish, says Asha Rangappa, sorry if I mispronounced that, a former FBI agent and former associate dean at Yale Law School.
Well. Somehow I find it hard to believe because he doesn't admit nothing. He barely admits he has kids, but yeah, interesting. I never thought he would, even to his own legal team, admit anything.
See, he's so stuck on these gotcha moments that I don't even think it registers to him that he's told on himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, yeah, by saying that he himself declassified documents. There is a process to that. Yeah.
And we covered last night where he literally labeled them mine and referred to them as mine. Like, are you too, Donald? Are you is that the problem? You're going through your terrible twos. Now we know that you are diaper ridden, but is that what's going on? But we're gonna take a quick break and run this month's ads, and then we'll be back in 2 months.
Style is the answer to everything. A fresh way to approach a dull or dangerous thing. To do a dangerous thing with style is what I call art.
Awesome merch.
Thank you. Now, some of you may be familiar with Andrew Tate. Some of you may not, but there's a picture of the douche canoodle. But he's been banned from all social media at this point. His house has been raided for suspected sex trafficking. But there is some people who have something to say about him, coming from Jezebel.com. Teachers warn that misogynist Andrew Tate has radicalized school-aged boys. This fall, educators will face yet another threat in their classrooms: the seemingly ubiquitous influence of Andrew Tate and internet personalities whose misogynistic and oftentimes violent messages are worming their ways into young boys' minds at an alarming rate. By now, you may have heard of Tate, the 35-year-old British-American schemer and self-described misogynist. Yeah, you read that right. Is a former professional boxer who appeared on the 2016 season of Big Brother before he was kicked off after a video surfaced of him hitting a woman with a belt. He and the woman later said the interaction was consensual, not abusive. Bullshit.
Uh,
The last 6 years, he's amassed 11.6 billion TikTok views, 4.7 million Instagram followers, and multiple appearances on vlogs, podcasts, giving him horrific reach for his content. Side note, let's not forget the MLM that he created, where he was basically having people pay him to take clips of his stuff and promote it all over the internet so that they could monetize their platforms to get paid. His greatest hits include the following: saying women shouldn't drive, comparing women to dogs, viewing his girlfriends as monetary assets, and claiming women should bear responsibility for being raped. In early August, The Guardian reported that Tate is being investigated on human trafficking, which he has denied, and rape allegations in Romania, side note, where he fled because of their extradition laws and how they view the treatment of women, where he lives in a mansion with his brother. In April, the home was raided by police in search of an American woman allegedly held against her will. Income-wise, Tate ran Hustlers University 2.0, upgraded to Hustlers University 3.0 on Monday, a modern wealth creation course that promises its more than 100,000 users, many of whom are young men, hacks on how to make $10,000 a month per The Guardian, all for the low price of $49.99 a month.
Let me guess. Cousin Matt Gates.
You would think. And the gun case that he has displayed in his house, it's already been confirmed that the vast majority of the weapons in there are airsoft weapons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
First of all, can y'all stop
There's a
taking
lot of this
relationship
world
advice?
is so full of a lot of these guys.
Yeah, but it's like, stop taking relationship advice from people who don't have a sustainable relationship, number one. Two, people who are single. And three, what makes certain men think that mistreating women is going to make us go, yes, he's the one for me? No. You can get your kneecap shut off. Y'all need to watch Harlem Nights and find out what happens when you disrespect a woman.
Yeah,
exactly. You know the thing I'm talking about.
Right, exactly. Oh, right. Good example.
A lot of us will tap into our inner Della Reese. That's all I'm gonna say. We will tap into our inner Della Reese.
Yeah, and plus we got a lot of these documentaries and stuff, series out there that highlight this. I know we had a string where we were talking about some of the ones we were watching either on Netflix or Hulu or something where we saw these predators that are out there taking advantage of women and really just preying off of their vulnerability is what it is. They just prey. They go in seeking women that are widowed, divorced. They pretty much are putting out there, and I tell people, don't put everything out on the table to the public because there are too many people out there that prey on it. There are predators out there that could care less about your feelings or about what happens to you after they're done with you. These are all things that they feed on because you're vulnerable. You're more likely to get sucked in by, oh, he's saying all the right things, and he's really saying things that I really needed to hear, and oh, he came around at just the right time. I was really down, and we had so many long conversations about what I had been through. Exactly. You got to be on guard. I mean, not to say that everyone is bad, but you got to be on guard about how quick, how early, how much you advertise your pain.
And I've told women this for decades, and Chris can contend to this because we admin.
Yeah, we see it. We see it.
A relationship group on Facebook. I always tell people, I don't care if you're male, female, or non-binary. Mm-hmm. When you're meeting someone, stop asking direct questions. Bring up something in conversation. If you want to know if they're close to your family, bring up, you know what? I used to love going to such and such as a teenager with my parents, and see what they say. And stop asking, well, what is it that you like to do? What is your ideal mate? Because they're going to ask you the same thing. And what's going to happen is people will mold themselves into that.
Right. Based on your answers, they're going to go, oh, me too. Oh, you like, I do too. You used to do what? Me too. You know, it's that easy, especially when you're in a state where you're vulnerable. You're just thinking you found someone that I finally found the match. Give it time. Ask the right questions. Don't be the one-way street. Don't be the one that's always putting your information. You need to get feedback too, because that one-way street's only feeding into somebody that's using that ultimately to gauge how they're going to respond to you and be around you. You got to find out who they are, even if they're telling you a story. You got to get them to disclose things. Don't be the one-way street of information.
And another thing, when you're on a dating profile or in a relationship group, and they're like, oh, introduce yourself. Stop leading with the woes of your life. I'm recently divorced. I'm a widower. I haven't dated in 20 years. Baby, that makes you prime prey.
Right. No kids, never married. Looking, never been in love. You know, I mean, you're putting all these things out there that just spell, not to say that you're entirely vulnerable, but the fact that you put certain things out there says that you're in a certain state of mind. So regardless if you think, no one's taking advantage of me because I'll just go back to staying single and no one's going to run their game on me, you've probably already said too much and you just didn't think you did. Because they're going to form who they want to be around you. Not anyone else, but this is specific to how they're going to perform around you.
And speaking of which, for someone who got game from the top to the bottom, Amber Heard's most wealthiest ex, Elon Musk. You knew it wasn't going to be
You brought the turd in? Oh,
you knew it wasn't going to be a Wednesday night without an Elon Musk and or Amber Heard story. Come on.
Amber Heard and SpaceX equals Turdex.
Yes. So coming from Fortune magazine, Twitter whistleblower has just handed Elon Musk major ammunition in his battle over bots, and his lawyers are already on the case. I bet they are, because he really didn't want to buy Twitter. A new bombshell report from a Twitter whistleblower could have big implications for the company's coming court case with Elon Musk. Would-be Twitter buyer Elon Musk is actively trying to pull out of the $44 billion takeover deal, as he claims the platform is filled with many more bot accounts than first advertised. As it turns out, he might be right, based on new testimony. You know, it's always messed up that every time Elon Musk lies, someone finds a way to turn his lie into the truth. But I digress. The social media app's management has allegedly created threats to U.S. national security, democracy, and user privacy, according to the bombshell account of a former Twitter executive who also claims that the company never had the ability or interest to accurately tally the number of bot accounts on the platform. Because Twitter is the BET after dark of social media. Everything goes on Twitter. You could be completely naked, tap dancing on corpses on Twitter. They will let it stand. That's why everybody was so shooketh and verklempt when Trump got banned. But here we go. The explosive allegations are being leveled at Twitter by former head of security and prolific hacker Peter Mudge Zatko, who joined the company in November 2020 and was fired by the CEO in January 2022. You don't fire a hacker, my boy. You don't fire a hacker. They got all your information. They gonna tell everybody. Oh, wait till I get off of here and get on the message boards. Lord
So without Twitter, I'm thinking Elon Musk, who's always on a roll. I'm waiting for when he's going to come out with my SpaceX.
Yeah.
Because, we had MySpace. He can go ahead and capitalize and say my SpaceX, and he's got his brand. With Amber Turd.
Well, now that everybody's figuring out that
she can go work for Warner, Brothers and have her stuff canceled.
Warner Brothers doesn't want. Now that she's being investigated because it's looking like the baby that she claims came through surrogacy does not actually exist. I don't think they're going to be joining forces anytime soon.
I don't think she'll be the next Batgirl either.
No, they're still trying to make amends with her. But there is somewhat of good news if you are a Yelp user. If you're a Yelp user and you have a uterus. Coming from CNN Business, Yelp to begin prominently labeling crisis pregnancy centers to avoid confusion. Yelp on Tuesday said it is introducing a new label to more clearly identify crisis pregnancy centers which do not perform abortions and typically attempt to persuade people from terminating pregnancies, in the latest example of tech companies adapting their policies in the wake of the demise of Roe v. Wade. Now, if a person comes across a crisis pregnancy center when browsing Yelp's business pages, they will see a notice that prominently identifies it as such and notes it may provide limited medical services and may not have licensed medical professionals on site, according to a blog post from Nuri Malik, the company's VP of user operations. So if you know someone that lives in a state that they may not be able to, at this point, get birth control, get proper sex education, please send them in the way of Yelp. Because I was going to try to put together a comprehensive list of pregnancy crisis centers, but there are so many, and a lot of them don't list themselves publicly as pregnancy crisis centers. So it's becoming impossible. I'm glad that Yelp did this, so as you all can see what pops up, so that people can get the actual help that they're in need of.
Good.
And also because like Walgreens is like not caring that they're allowing their pharmacists and their cashiers to go off of their personal and religious beliefs as to whether or not they're going to sell contraceptives to people. If you run into that in your area, please let people know. I'm not saying get on the internet and go, hey, you guys, this Walgreens 2 blocks away from my house. No. I'm saying people in close proximity to you, because that's who needs to know. Because if they're trying to be healthy and proactive, they need to know where their business should go and where they're actually going to get assistance from.
Yeah, maybe Walgreens will go back to having Theranos.
And my thing is, after the whole Theranos scandal, I figured they would stop being so weird.
Yeah, I didn't think they'd want to have anything else blow up in their face like Theranos.
But
which I think aren't we getting? Don't we still have more hearings on Miss Holmes?
Yeah, she still hasn't left the United States, and she signed an additional contract with Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Right.
So you know,
for the faux job, she like if Stephen Jobs had some illegitimate daughter out there, she'd be it with her turtleneck.
And for everybody, do not forget tomorrow's podcast will be an official show. We're going to go over. It's more than likely going to be a 2-parter because don't say nothing, Chris. I over researched.
How about that? Never. A tourist never does that.
So we're going to go over the origins of the Espionage Act of 1917, which is what they're using in order to investigate Trump, and all of the people leading up to it, because now you have op-eds being written saying this organization is corrupt, this part of the bill is corrupt. There's corruption throughout everything within the United States, but we're going to break it down. The most notable people, why it's important, who's been charged previously under the act, and former amendments, because there are quite a few amendments to the act that have since been repealed. But we have one story that's going to take us home to remind you all that yes, it is 2022, but some of the fabric of the United States doesn't seem to want to change. So there's two videos, we got an article, and then we're going to, as the title says, get into it.
If you are up late, you are in for a truly unhinged story right here out of Rochester. So this fella here is a very prominent dentist in town, and this is his wife. About a month ago, they hosted a parody Juneteenth party at their home. A black firefighter was taken to this party while he was on the clock and filed a notice to sue the city because the party was hella racist and he was deeply uncomfortable. He claims she decorated her lawn with buckets of fried chicken and served Hennessy. Also, there were allegedly pictures of the police accountability board's heads on stakes. She claims that they were not trying to be racist, just trying to make fun of liberals. So they host a whole ass press conference this morning to try and clear their names, and she goes, but before I do that, in full disclosure, I do have a Twitter parody account that operates under a veil of a persona, and I have made blatantly racist comments under that persona. She said the tweets are just part of Twitter's charm. I can't even show the tweets to you, that's how bad they are. So what happens now?
This is a story of blatant racism. These are Mary and Dr. Nicholas Nicosia of Rochester, New York, and they decided to organize a party designed to make fun of Juneteenth. The party was organized around prejudice stereotypes against the African American community. There were buckets of chicken, Hennessy, and signs making fun of Juneteenth. And this is Jared Jones, who is a firefighter from Rochester, New York, who was taken to the party by his captain. Now, because of the story that I'm about to tell you, his captain was under termination proceedings, but he managed to retire before they could be started. However, Mr. Jones, who's a public servant, was so humiliated by that fact that he decided to sue the city of Rochester and the fire department. And this is how we came to find out the details of this horrific party. The details of this horrible party obviously spread like wildfire after the lawsuit was filed, and Ms. and Dr. Nicosia decided that they wanted to fight back. Dr. Nicosia went on record as saying that the allegation of racism that were made against them were false and malicious because their party was just designed to make fun of liberals. He also said that they were tried and convicted on social media. And it's funny that he speaks about social media because just because of social media, this couple's week got a whole lot worse. You see, their lawyer decided to organize a press conference to try to clean up and redeem their image. And during the press conference, Mary Nicosias admitted that she has a Twitter account under a false name where she has made blatant racist comments. Not only that, but she had the balls to absolve herself by saying that this is just the charm of Twitter. Obviously, the Twitter account no longer exists, but just for reference, this is the tamest tweet that I can show you from that account. You can pause to read. So it looks like your party obtained the objective of proving the idiocy of some people, maybe not just the people you wanted.
And coming from Democrat and Chronicle.com, Rochester firefighter says captain took him to racist party mocking Juneteenth. A captain in the Rochester Fire Department took a black firefighter and others to a racist event at an East Avenue mansion in the middle of a shift this summer, where attendees ate fried chicken and drank cognac, according to a notice of claim filed today. The black firefighter, 14-year veteran Jared Jones, is on leave from RFD because of emotional distress and fear of retaliation. He said the event, a faux Juneteenth party, at a 9,800 square foot mansion with attendees drinking cognac and yelling lewd remarks at a burlesque dancer dressed up as Monroe County legislator Rachel Barnhart, reminded him of the movie Get Out. in which wealthy white people staged seemingly genteel events to harvest black people's bodies. Jones also alleges he saw a high-ranking Rochester police officer at the party, but did not know his name, attending an explicitly racist event at such as the one described in the complaint would violate RPD and RFD ethical standards. RPD said an internal investigation is underway. Jones filed the notice of claim only after he said RFD took no action in response to his internal complaint. It seeks $4 million in damages from the city. It cut me very deeply. I'm sorry I even have to be here today, Jones said Thursday at a press conference in front of City Hall. But as terribly as I'm feeling, I'm glad it happened to me and not someone who could be easily intimidated. According to the complaint, Jones's supervisor, Captain Jeffrey Cryry, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, took him and two other junior firefighters to the party at 1286 East Avenue, a 9,800 square foot mansion just east of Culver Road. The owners, Nicholas Nicosia and Mary, I cannot pronounce her last name, Zniarsic, were named in the notice of claim as hosts. There was no answer at the door Thursday morning. When he first arrived, Jones said he saw a large cutout of Donald Trump, large Juneteenth flags with buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken prominently displayed around them. Gift bags included a small bottle of cognac and a Juneteenth commemorative cup. There were also photos of Democratic politicians, including City Councilman Mitch Gruber and members of the Rochester Police Accountability Board, on stakes in the grass. At the press conference Thursday, Barnhart said the sexualized depiction of her and the photos of other lawmakers encouraged incivility and violence. When you put on a uniform, you're supposed to uphold basic values of decency, Barnhart said Thursday. There should be consequences for not doing so. Woo. The couple seemed nervous about his presence at the party. They instructed the junior firefighters not to take any photos. One inebriated woman who identified herself as Char for Chardonnay told Jones the party was in good humor and well justified because Joe Biden is ruining the country. She became amorous towards Jones, according to the complaint. As the firefighters left, Jones said the wife stopped and asked him several times if he wanted to take the fried chicken home. In a statement Thursday afternoon, Rochester Fire Chief Felipe Hernandez called the allegations unacceptable and an affront to everyone who's worked for the RFD and in City Hall. He said an internal investigation was finished and the captain remains suspended until the action has been received and accepted. Jones called for an independent investigation. He was also echoed by the state legislative delegation, which called the accusations disturbing beyond words. So they were fetishizing him, being racist and discriminatory, and one white woman got so drunk that it didn't the host. You want to take the chicken home? No, we don't want that nasty ass Kentucky Fried Chicken.
And I mean, we know this stuff's been around forever, but like I said, during the 45 era, this all just became more to the front row. He took him from the back row to the front row. And
how much you want to bet that cop was on duty also?
I mean, because like I said, I'm not saying this stuff wasn't out there. This stuff is.
The fire chief was on duty and took two on-duty firefighters with him. So if there was an emergency, how much you want to bet that high-ranking officer was also on duty? And if this was all in good fun, why can't anybody take any pictures?
Or their sorry excuse that this was to get back at the libs or the Dems. Clearly it wasn't. I mean, this was blatant. I mean, this was in your face. This was no shame in their game. This was to have the to bring somebody to that party and have them exposed to that just tells you the degree of which they'll go to just to do their own thing.
And this was 100% an intimidation tactic, because this was not a black person who was passe blanche, where most white people look at skin tone and not phenotypes.
This wasn't Cameron from Kentucky.
Right. This wasn't, oh, I can't tell. I thought you were white and I brought you around and I thought you would be cool with this. This was not somebody who was passe blanche. This was a heavily melanated black man.
Right. Right. So yeah.
And for people who constantly want to say, oh no, Obama was elected, LeBron James became a billionaire, racism doesn't exist anymore. Money just exclude people's prejudice and their desire to uphold the ancestral systems of oppression and racism within the United States. It does not.
Obama was a Hawaiian.
You know what? This is why GOP is fighting against education and collegiate success. They want to brag about their degrees, but they don't want you to have a degree or actually learn anything or pay attention, because most of them didn't even take the classes for themselves. But that's a conversation for another day. Racism is the foundation of the capitalism within the United States. If you do not believe with me, believe what I'm saying, argue with historians, argue with your mama, argue with Jesus, Allah, Buddha, or a few Hindu gods, but no.
They call that the old saying. They call that the old divide and conquer.
Because without racism, the United States would not have its foundation of capitalism. The United States would not have its 1%.
It's an elitist class, which we know what tone that is. Just look at the NFL owners, the elitists. So,
but y'all also don't want to hear me when I tell y'all sit there and go, well, segregation ended. No, it didn't. They gave y'all a great game of propaganda to tell you the segregation ended, because when they quote unquote ended segregation, that's when private schools, parochial schools started to pop up. Redlining, blockbustering. Segregation was still going on. They just didn't care about poor white folks.
Remember the
white trash during the antebellum period to let people know where they stood with them. They
so
keep moving.
You can entertain us. We just not letting you be in a decision-making role.
Right. That's why year after year after year, they keep moving the goalposts as to who can identify and who can check on in what box as to being white. Because let us not forget that in 2021, the federal government said that Asian people within the United States could identify as white.
Remember in the last administration, they gave the green light for businesses to turn away customers they didn't want to serve. And not do anything about it. Just, hey, I'm not going to make this birthday cake, or I'm not going to make this wedding cake for this gay couple. I mean, they made it. They didn't just make it okay. They endorsed it. They were bragging about how this was liberating the business owners that don't want to serve certain. You know what door that opened up for everything out there? Not just for that, not just for a certain community, but for all communities.
Well, it's just like now their book bannings that are popping up is opening the door for people to ban the Bible, libraries, and everything. But what are your final thoughts on the night, Chris?
I was going to add to this and say I'm waiting until they come back, circle back around to the IR community, because then I'll be like, here we go again. So.
Oh, they already have. They were trying to codify loving.
Except that they have one of their chosen ones on the court.
Oh, no. They all, even the ones in Congress that are in inter and intra-racial relationships, voted against it. And I'm like, you do realize, like, if you don't like your partner, just divorce them.
Just like the crooks in the SCOTUS. But my thoughts, I know we're leading into some big information coming out of Mar-a-Lago, and I still feel bad for that location because of the history that was behind it, because of Marjorie Post and the things that actually, that what it's become. But like I said, with these midterms and the momentum, and yes, we have a lot to say about Joe, but these are still scary times in the midterms. I'm hopeful there's some momentum. I'm hopeful that people are coming around that still may have been on the fence. Now, you're obviously never going to get those that have been drinking punch for 5 years, and that's fine. They're uneducated from day one anyway, so they don't care about the truth. But it's the ones that really want to make a difference, because there's so much out there that's for the public and for different communities, especially on the lower and middle class, that are very popular, that need to get done. Aside from what's getting done, there's a lot of baby steps, because there's certain things that can't get passed in the elderly Congress and Senate. But I hope this momentum is going to fuel that blue and keep things going, especially in certain states like Florida, especially in places in the South where things need to get turned around and stayed turned around, like Georgia and places, Texas has been coming around in the past several years, because of those that have moved into the state and those that have been growing up and have taken certain point of views on things. And it's not necessarily those that are clearly, hey, I'm 100% Democrat. You're getting a good majority of independents that have leaned, that have gone that route. And obviously, without a legitimate third party, you're counting on a lot of those votes to go to a way where a lot of what would benefit the Americans have been popular, and it's showing more and more that those on the right have, and it should be broadcasted more often, have always said no to things that are actually popular out in the public, regardless. And we're not talking partisan out in public. We're just talking about people who says, hey, these things are good, these things we want, these things we like, and they know which party is telling them no. And that needs to be broadcast a lot louder, because they're more interested in turning the clock back to 1940 than it is about moving into the new millennium, new generation of, just like any corporation would do. Every so often, corporations have to make changes to adapt to a changing world. No different from a country. Our world's changing. Communities change within that country. We should be more of a receiving and caring country instead of, we like the way things were back in the day, because we know back in the day only catered to certain people. So I just hope this momentum keeps going. The votes will come in, and people stay alert. Keep your eyes open. That's all.
I just want to say these things. If you joined us late in the episode, you can rewind this back, or once we end, you can watch it all the way from the beginning. Do keep in mind, tomorrow we will start talking about the Espionage Act, the Sedition Act, the one successful coup within the United States, etc., to give you all some contextual understanding of what's going on currently, and you don't get lost in the sauce with misinformation and disinformation. I do want to say this to you. As always, look into your local candidates, start there, and climb the ladder. Do not be swayed by pomp and circumstance and who has the prettiest videos, who sends you the most stickers, or who can give you the most free shirts. Buzzwords and talking points are not what you need to be focusing on. And to all of the white women that accosted Black women specifically online for a handful of weeks regarding Roe v. Wade. Where are you now? This is why we said we're not helping you. You sprint when it comes to change, expecting us to run the marathons. But as always, I'll see you all tomorrow, and each one teach one, each one reach one. Till next time.
Be safe.